Hillary said social media platforms must censor strictly content, or else we're going to, quote, lose total control. What she actually meant in correct translation, I have no respect for her, but I don't really have any respect for any politician. What she means is that you're going to lose control of the narrative. She didn't finish the last part of that. It's what she meant and was thinking, but she didn't say it because she's smart enough to know not to say that. Yeah, we're going to have to censor. The social media outfits need to start censoring things, really. Otherwise, we're going to lose control of the narrative. And people are addicted. I see this all the time. And yet, people like, oh, I've believed this nonsense for so long. And their belief is what they identify as themselves. Well, I am a collection of various beliefs. And if you're going to come along and prove this belief I have, whether that be a big belief of mine or a small belief, I cannot listen to that because you're basically annihilating who and that which I am. You see, the ignorance that identifies as this persona. Not just the meat suit, not just the psychophysical persona non grata, Bob, Sue, Larry. Yeah, and that's the passage that repeats itself thousands of times in the Nikaya. Rupa nata veda nata sana nata sankara nata vinya nata nama rupa nata te. I know you don't speak ancient Pali, dead language now for 2,000 years. It means the psychophysical is not that which I truly am, i.e. the transcendent soul. But there's a secondary substrate of the persona that people cling to so deeply. My beliefs, you're basically annihilating that which I am. Like what? By proving you wrong? By book and verse and logic and citation? In fact? Which I've done a million times. I mean, literally a million times. That's right. It's like, I just proved you wrong. No, I've been clinging onto that belief for a long time. It's kind of like that moldy apple I got in the back of my refrigerator. It's been there for 10 years. It's like, why don't you throw it out? You can't eat it. It's toxic. Yeah, but it's been in my refrigerator so long, I haven't gotten really used to it. It's probably making you sick because its mold spores are propagating throughout the rest of the refrigerator. They won't do it. They won't give it up. That is that which they identify. And of course, there is subjective truth and objective truth. Most people can't differentiate, and you are not taught the difference in high school or college or elementary school. Only evil and tyranny wants to suppress speech. If you're so opposed to me saying it, then there must be some truth in it that, rubs your fur the wrong way. There
are stories circulating on the internet that in India and elsewhere, the drug ribavirin has been shown to be effective against this virus. Yet, Homeland Security is telling the CDC not to make any announcements until stockpiles of the drug can be secured.
Well, Dr. Gupta, there continue to be evaluations of several drugs. Ribavirin is among them. But right now, our best defense has been social distancing. No handshaking, staying home when you're sick, washing your hands frequently.
Can you tell us to date how many people have died from this virus?
Very difficult. We're still working on confirming that number. There are 50 different states in this country, which means there are 50 different health departments, followed by 50 different protocols.
The world of medicine has seen its share of miracle cures, from the polio vaccine to heart transplants, but all past achievements may pale in comparison to the work of Dr. Alice Crippen. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Not at all.
So, Dr. Crippen, give it to me in a nutshell.
Well, the premise is quite simple. Take something designed by nature and reprogram it to make it work for the body rather than against it.
You're talking about a virus?
Indeed, yes, in this case the measles virus, which has been engineered at a genetic level to be helpful rather than harmful. And I find the best way to describe it is if you can imagine your body as a highway and you picture the virus as a very fast car being driven by a very bad man, imagine the damage that car could cause. But then if you replace that man with a cop, the picture changes, and that's essentially what we've done.
Now, how many people have you treated so far?
Well, we've had 10,009 clinical trials in humans so far.
And how many are cancer-free?
10,009.
So you have actually cured cancer?
Yes. Yes, we have.
Technology is completely safe, And I think that we need some more long-term data, which will obviously come with these studies, to know that interfering with the DNA and RNA in our cells is actually potential.
But we did it with COVID.
We did, and there are oncologists now calling for it to be stopped, the mRNA technology. So there is still debate around that. And I think it's good. We need debate, but we need open debate where we really can look. The other thing is going to be cost, Nana. So we're looking with this particular vaccine at £400,000 per patient.
But surely the treatment of somebody who has melanoma and all the things that go with it is far more expensive than that. And then the cancer can return, so then you're going to be paying again.
Yeah, so this isn't going to stop the cancer in the first place. But this is after.
But once you've had it, then you can use this technology to stop it.
Yeah.
So you'll still have to have all the treatments to get rid of it initially.
You will.
Right.
And then this will hopefully stop recurrence. Because otherwise you'd have to inject everybody in case they ever got it, and you wouldn't have any sample proteins.
Well, you wouldn't have initial DNA from... You'd need to do it.
So you've got to have the cancer to start with. But, you know, NICE guidance, which guides our money and how much we spend, puts about £30,000 on every life, quality of life year saved. So whether or not this will fall into it, whether the price will come down as the research goes ahead. But certainly, I said to you in the break, we are going to have some very open and honest conversations with people and say, look, this is your NHS, this is the pot of money. Do you want to do this or do you want to do that?
New guidelines for every American to follow over the next 15 days.
Stay at home. That is the order tonight.
Stay home.
We can flatten the curve. We had 15 days to slow the spread, we were told.
100% of the workforce must stay home.
Now, I was already skeptical of government command and control, but I was still surprised at how authoritarian many politicians were eager to be. Those 15 days turned into years, and the loss of our freedoms increased.
This is not about freedom or personal choice.
It should have been. Instead, everywhere, politicians kill jobs, pass laws that make everything cost more.
Costs are going up everywhere, from the grocery store to the gas station.
They sped up America's path toward bankruptcy.
The largest stimulus bill in U.S. history, $2 trillion.
4 years later, let's remember politicians' incompetence and their insatiable wish to gain power over us. Let's not give them power like that again. Nor should we trust the hysterical media. They're always eager to make life scarier than it is.
There is a very good chance there's no room for you in the hospital right now if you need to go.
And the worst is yet to come.
What follows is one of my first videos from the beginning of COVID. Sadly, it was just a taste of what was to come.
Some governors are still refusing to take action to protect their own citizens.
The media keep insisting government must set stricter rules.
10 states have no stay-at-home orders.
Even some on Fox say it.
It is necessary to shut things down everywhere. And that includes Utah, Wyoming.
Wait a second, has he ever been to Wyoming? It's got so much open space. Why would the same rules apply here as in New York? It's creepy how some people are so eager to have authorities boss us around. Police departments now monitor people with drones.
This is the Volusia Sheriff's Office. Please adhere to social distancing guidelines.
Now some people are saying enough. These people are protesting North Carolina's stay-at-home order.
I feel that my rights have been completely removed.
On Twitter, the police declared protesting is a non-essential activity, and they arrested this woman. But wait a second, the Bill of Rights does say the American people have a right to peaceably assemble and petition the government.
All public and private gatherings of any size are prohibited.
Michigan's governor probably imposed the harshest rules.
Residents can no longer visit friends or relatives. Those who have more than one home banned from traveling between them.
No wonder people staged this protest against her rules.
They say it goes too far, takes away their rights, and in some cases is too arbitrary.
Arbitrary is how it looks. Big stores may stay open, but they must not sell certain things.
Big box stores will also have to close areas of the store that are dedicated to things like carpet or flooring, furniture, garden centers, plant nurseries, or paint.
But things like gardening and painting are activities that can be done far from other people. So is exercise. But watch out in California.
A paddleboarder is chased down by law enforcement for being out on the water at Malibu Beach.
This man was more than 6 feet from anyone, but police chased him down.
He cut him off!
And they punished him.
Yep, this paddleboarder was arrested.
In Encinitas, California, police gave $1,000 tickets to people watching the sunset. Yes, they were inside cars, not endangering anyone. That day, the police posted this video saying, "We go to work for you."
We're going to continue to be doing enforcement. We're dealing with the crisis at this point, and we want compliance from everybody because this is lives that we're trying to save.
But it's not clear that demanding total compliance is the best way to save lives.
In the Swedish city of Malmö, life appears to be carrying on almost as normal.
Sweden took a near opposite approach. Yes, they encourage older people to stay inside and tell sick people to stay home. They don't want hospitals overwhelmed. But otherwise, they let life happen.
In this street in Stockholm, there's not much evidence of social distancing.
Sweden's leaders don't think an extended shutdown is sustainable.
Closing schools, more stringent measures like that, closing borders. You cannot do that for months or years ahead. What we're doing in Sweden, we can continue to do for a long time, and I think that's going to prove to be very, very important in the long run.
Because of vaccines probably more than a year away. Until then, the best protection is what epidemiologists call herd immunity, a critical mass of people who get the disease and then are resistant to it.
Herd immunity is the one thing that will eventually slow down the spread of this virus. Nothing else will slow it down in the long term.
The idea is that once enough people have gotten coronavirus, there'll be enough immunity to prevent future mass outbreaks and to protect the most vulnerable people.
That idea was widely mocked by the media and experts from around the world.
Sweden's failed experiment. How their dangerous COVID gamble went wrong.
Officials made the decision not to lock down, hoping it would lead to widespread immunity. But cases are surging.
Excuse me, MSNBC. Now we know Sweden saw the lowest excess death rate in Europe. So I figure I was right then to say what Sweden did
seems smarter than the absolute shutdown promoted by many American authorities.
If we see continued noncompliance, they'll wind up facing misdemeanor charge, and DWP will step in and shut off their water and power.
Shut off their water? Let's be sensible about this. Politicians are supposed to serve us, not just boss us around.
Stay at home. That is the order tonight.
Stay home. When COVID hit, experts were quick to tell us exactly what to do.
Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands.
Turns out washing our hands doesn't protect us, but being outdoors does. At the beginning of the pandemic, experts told us, stay home, close schools, don't wear masks, do wear masks, disinfect countertops.
How to clean and disinfect your home.
Now, 3 years later, we can say who was right and who was wrong.
In Florida, the pandemic is raging.
The media got a lot wrong. They repeatedly trashed Florida's governor for lifting lockdowns.
Governor DeSantis is just acting irresponsibly.
While praising New York's governor.
Governor Cuomo is doing an amazing job.
I'm wowed by what you did.
The governor's brother gushed over New York's lockdowns and sneered at Florida's reopening.
That's why states like Florida are in such dire straits.
But Florida wasn't in dire straits. Florida and New York had about the same number of deaths. And if you take age into account, Florida has more old people. Florida did better than New York. In general, 3 years later, we see little difference between states that opened up and those that didn't. In fact, the states with the fewest deaths are liberal Vermont and conservative Utah. Around the world, the experts and the media were just as wrong.
Sweden's failed experiment. How their dangerous COVID gamble went wrong.
Reporters trashed Sweden.
Officials made the decision not to lock down, hoping it would lead to widespread immunity. But cases are surging.
Cases were surging then, deaths too. But allowing people to develop immunity did pay off. Sweden ultimately did better than its neighbors. In fact, Sweden has had fewer excess deaths than most other countries, says the OECD. Did you hear about that from American media that trashed Sweden? I didn't think so. Excess deaths, say researchers, deaths above the pre-COVID average. That's the best way to compare countries' COVID experience. It's because some countries undercount COVID.
A huge gap between reported deaths and COVID deaths.
India reported fewer than 1 million deaths, but there were probably many more because there were 5 million excess deaths in India. Former Soviet countries undercounted too.
Здесь нет вирусов никаких.
The dictator of Belarus played hockey and said his country was COVID-free.
Спорт, особенно лед, холодильник этот, антивирусное лекарство, самое настоящее.
Belarus and other former Soviet states claimed they did well, but excess death data show they did terribly. Maxim Lott maps this data and posts it at the website Maximum Truth. His COVID fudge factor reveals the communist culture of hiding the truth is alive and well. Here's the excess death data for the whole world. The dark-shaded countries like Russia, Bulgaria, and Peru did worst. Countries in gray mean there wasn't enough reliable data. Lighter places like Mongolia and Kenya did very well. I was surprised to see that Kenya and Togo and sub-Saharan Africa did well. Surprised because Africa has low vaccination rates and less high-quality medical care. Lott says it's probably because their population's so young. COVID rarely harms young people. What does the data say about countries like Australia, places that impose brutal lockdowns?
For anyone who breaches quarantine, they face fines and even jail. The penalties ranging from as much as $50,000 in WA and 12 months behind bars.
Australia's rigid rules did save lives, partly because the island sealed its borders, banning almost all travel. For 2 years, there was little COVID in Australia. But once almost every Australian was vaccinated, the government lifted its lockdown. COVID cases soared. Population adjusted. Australia now has had more COVID cases than the U.S., but far fewer deaths, partly because when Australia stopped its lockdown, Omicron was circulating, and the Omicron strain is less deadly. Were Australia's strict lockdowns worth it?
You are bending my arm backwards.
The average Australian lived 2 weeks longer because the country's strict rules limited COVID spread. But would you want to deal with Australia's authoritarian lockdown to live 2 weeks longer? I wouldn't. And it turns out people in China don't want that either.
They're chanting that they don't want COVID tests. They want freedom.
Protesting's illegal in China, so these people risked their lives. Here, factory workers threw barricades at security guards in white hazmat suits. The workers have been forced to stay inside an iPhone factory for weeks to keep them safe from COVID. After the protests,
China did a U-turn and lifted most of its severe COVID rules.
What can America learn from all this? We now know that draconian lockdowns can save lives, but lockdowns hurt people financially. New York lost 400,000 jobs since the start of the pandemic. Florida gained 400,000. Also, kids in lockdown states suffered. Obesity increased in New York by 5 percentage points, just because New York kept schools closed. Well, in Florida, where schools reopened sooner, obesity actually fell a little. Kids' education suffered an historic setback.
Scores decreased by the largest amount ever recorded.
In Sweden, which never closed its primary schools, kids suffered no learning loss. I get that we know more now. 3 years ago, terrified politicians just wanted to do something. But next pandemic, I wish they'd be a little humble, except that they don't know everything. All of us have different values about safety versus freedom. Life's better when we individuals get to make our own decisions. This is a fancy restaurant. At the French Laundry, dinners can cost $800. It's so luxurious that the late Anthony Bourdain said,
"This is like driving a Rolls Royce naked in mink underpants."
But because of COVID, we shouldn't eat here. It's in California where the governor says,
it's absolutely essential avoiding mixing with people that are outside of your households.
Okay, we won't go. But wait, look at this picture.
Governor Gavin Newsom dining at the luxurious French Laundry restaurant.
No masks anywhere and multiple households against his own rules. Now, you might have heard about Newsom's hypocrisy, but it was worse than we thought.
Politicians' priorities will always be put first.
Jarrett Stepman of the Daily Signal reports on politicians' hypocrisy. It was a friend's birthday party. He had some obligation to go to that.
This is not just simply a friend. This is a powerful lobbyist who's there to get exemptions for powerful people in the state of California.
The governor's friend is a fixer who gets his clients exemptions from lockdowns.
Clients like Hollywood firms so they can keep working while others can't.
I'm losing everything. Everything I own is being taken away from me.
This woman had remodeled her restaurant for COVID.
All the work I did for outdoor dining, for tables being 7 feet apart.
Her kind of dining was suddenly forbidden, but not for the politically connected.
They set up a movie company right next to my outdoor patio.
They're allowed to have outdoor dining right next to her restaurant.
Tell me that this is dangerous, but right next to me as a slap in my face, that's safe.
She doesn't have a powerful team of lobbyists who can argue on her behalf in the state's capital.
California has lots of hypocritical politicians. You heard about Nancy Pelosi.
Surveillance video shows her at a hair salon, getting a blowout and not wearing a face mask.
In Mississippi, Governor Tate Reeves held 3 Christmas parties.
Seems to fly in the face of guidance from his own health advisors.
How is that not in conflict with the order?
It allows us to really send a message to the people of Mississippi that you can return to a life that is somewhat normal.
Normal for politicians.
Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo maskless at a wine bar Friday night. This just days after sending a tweet telling people to, quote, stay home except for essential activities.
There is this feeling, Governor, that you are constantly lecturing people about the rules. Some people look at that picture and think it's hypocritical.
That night, we were absolutely following the rules. I was with my household, wearing a mask.
Washington, D.C.'s mayor demanded a 14-day quarantine for anyone going to states like Delaware for non-essential activity. But then she went to Delaware to celebrate Joe Biden. Her excuse?
I do a lot of things to advance the interests of the District of Columbia. And some of them are formal and some of them are informal, but all of them are necessary.
If politicians do it, it's always necessary. President Biden declared that masks must be worn on all federal property. And then he and his family almost immediately broke his own rule at the Lincoln Memorial. Donald Trump was a hypocrite too.
When needed, I wear a mask.
He agreed to presidential debate rules requiring everyone to wear masks before the debate began. But he and his family didn't. And as it turned out, he had COVID then.
I think this was a blessing from God that I caught it.
At least Trump didn't dance in Times Square.
Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, dancing in an almost empty Times Square.
After telling New Yorkers not to come here on New Year's Eve.
It was like something out of the Hunger Games.
The presidential palace, the party of the year.
In Chicago, when salons were closed, the mayor got a haircut.
A photo that surfaced on social media showing the mayor after getting a trim has some asking, what about me?
I take my personal hygiene very seriously. As I said, I felt like I needed to have a haircut.
She was a double hypocrite, really.
This is a great day for our country.
She was seen attending election day parties and giant street festivals, not wearing a mask. She said, well, the people simply deserve a night of fun. What about all the other people? What about their ideas of fun?
Politicians' hypocrisy is everywhere. The Heritage Foundation tracks it. They give at least 50 examples.
Politicians have one set of standards to follow, and we have another. And it's up to us to say, you're either going to follow those rules, you're going to change those rules, or we're going to throw you out.
Once again, I have to point out to you that lies and true disinformation are only serve two purposes: power and persona. And by persona, I mean beliefs, and this is what people identify with. When I talk about persona, I'm not just talking about the physical meat suit. I'm talking about the class of things that you believe in, that you think is that which you are. So lies only serve two things. I mean, there's conventional ignorance. Like you'll say something, well, I didn't know that. I thought I was right. And here is something that every child on earth should have been taught. And I guarantee you, no child on this earth was taught this. So you better listen closely. It is that important. Every child should have been taught this, like, every month of every school year, including college. It's like, I know you've heard this a million times. We got to say it again, because it's that important. A genuine truth seeker, which is noble and praiseworthy, loves to be proven right, he or she, loves to be proven right, or they, loves to be proven right, or they love to be proven wrong. Can you think why that would be? If you're on the right path and you're proven right, it makes you happy if you're a truth seeker, because you know you're headed in the right direction. If you're headed in the wrong direction and someone, they don't have to slam you. Some people will slam you and tell the truth. Like, you're on the wrong path, girlfriend, man, you're crazy. You can say, you're on the wrong path because boom, 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 boom. Wow, I did not know that. People put up a barrier that leads to their own self-destruction. If you are proven wrong by facts, logic, wisdom, and evidences, and you drop this persona, i.e. belief systems that you have about yourself, that means you've been corrected. Just think about that for a second. Nobody ever has been taught this, not that I know of. No. Even Plato or Pythagoras or Plotinus never said this. If you're proven right, you know you're on the right path. Everything else, no one can contradict you. You're on the right path. Boom. Great. Great, great, great. If you're proven wrong, well, a person that's attached to their beliefs, it makes them super angry. But people like that are attached to their nonsense, their lies, their beliefs. People in love with misinformation. But just think about that. If you're proven right, you're on the right path. If you're proven wrong, you should be happy. The only reason anybody that's legitimately proven wrong is unhappy is if they're attached to beliefs and false persona. If someone says I'm on the wrong path and they've given me evidence, logic, boom, 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 well, thank you. Like, yeah, you're heading down the wrong path. This path leads off a cliff. Well, thank you. Did not know that. I mistakenly was headed in the wrong direction about, principle ABC, XYZ. You've been corrected. Just think about how brilliant and simple that is. If you're proven right, you're on the right path. If you're proven wrong, then you're corrected and put on the right path. Either one should make you happy. But it doesn't make most people happy because most people are addicted to their sorry, little, petty, vile, little...
this is who I am. This is what I believe, and that's who I am. Look at that. That's me. Look at that.
No, that's not who you are.